All right, guys, welcome back to another Michigan edition of Real Talk. Jeff here. Dan, how are you, sir?
Good, man. I see you again.
Yeah, you as well. Um, we've come full circle. Just a couple short weeks back, we did a podcast about how we didn't think we'd have a season, and then all of a sudden the Big Ten changes their ways, and we're excited, we're pumped, and Michigan takes week one, and we're up here. At least I am. I know you're more of a realist, but I'm up here. Cloud
Yeah,
nine.
yeah.
I quickly get brought down to earth. Michigan doesn't finish the season how we wanted, but we have this one game, and it's the game. It's Michigan. It's Ohio State. It's the big one, and it's the biggest rivalry in college football. And though it hasn't seemed like it on the field, it still is huge, especially in our area that we're from. And news today around 3 o'clock that this game is canceled. Ohio State Michigan is no longer going to be played, and Ohio State they got a lot of stuff going on as far as criteria in order to qualify for the Big Ten championship, as far as potentially what their resume looks like versus other people for the college football playoffs, and we'll all get to that. But let's stick to strictly the facts here. And Michigan cancels the game. AD cancels the game, and rumor has it. The facts are that the tests were elevating. They were getting more and more positive tests, and that's the reason they canceled. But the rumor is that there was 45 players.
Mm-hmm.
So the facts are there was more and more tests than they were having. Who knows how many actual players it is? Doesn't really matter. What are your initial reactions?
Well, it's a bummer, and I know it was looking pretty bleak as a U of M fan because watching the game, we're most likely going to be disappointed in the outcome. But again, it's disappointing just because it's not happening, and this season is already weird. And college football to me, like, it hasn't hit me. I don't know why it just hasn't really hit me in the reality because of the way the season has been shortened and how far we are into December right now, and we haven't even had the game played. So with 45 players being on this list, it is a mix and match between the contact tracing and people that are injured. So who knows what the true number is for the people that are tested positive. Knowing Michigan, they're going to keep it under wraps, specifically who it was. I mean, probably majority of the programs will. It came to mind earlier this afternoon when the news broke. Jim Harbaugh, when he first, I don't know if he still does it, but I know for a while there, traveling on the road or at home, he would never announce his starting lineup at the stadium or on. And it wasn't until the TV broadcast you'd see it. He very keeping the chips close to his chest on the starting lineup. I felt like that's what it's going to be like now. No one's going to know too many details for probably forever. Uh,
Well,
so
truly, let me stop you there real quick. We're not talking about NFL paid players. These are
right,
kids. These
right,
are college kids. So, I mean, no offense to us, but we don't deserve to know. It's not our
right,
business. That's somebody's medical. I mean, these aren't paid players. They're getting an
right.
education, but we are not entitled to
Mm-hmm.
know who tests positive, who came into, just like your work. If you go into work right now and one of your employees that you work with
Yeah,
tests positive and they tell their boss, hey, I'm not going to be coming in today. It is not you're not entitled to find out who that is.
right, right,
It's private. I mean, so we're not going to find out how many people probably. Maybe we know a number, but we're never going to know what players. Or,
right.
the rumor has it is we were going to be without both Joe Milton and Cade McNamara
Yeah,
and Dan Villari or however. I mean, he was the rumor. I'd never heard of him. I didn't know who. I had to look it up.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. That
So
was that was definitely a big question mark already. Was the quarterback position, and so again, the interwebs have been breaking the internet. And so we'll definitely get into that talk in a minute. But my initial reaction again was I thought they were going to play last week's episode we did. I thought they were going to play again because it took 20 something for Wisconsin to cancel their second week. So when I heard 45, I was kind of like, whoa, geez, 45. But again, it's a mixture of a little bit of everything. But hopefully everyone's okay. I think I did read briefly before we just started this on the TV ticker that one college player has that I can't pronounce it. It was that marotitis, that condition that comes with COVID, to some players. I thought I read something about that. I could be wrong. So hopefully all those players on the U of M roster are going to be fine.
Yeah. I'll speak briefly to what my reaction was. First off, it's embarrassing for me as a Michigan fan because I think initially what comes with that is we're scared to play, which I believe is false. 100% false. I think it's an asinine take. I think that's an ignorant take to think that Michigan is scared to step foot on the football field for somebody. I don't think that our AD or Jim Harbaugh or any of the coaching staff or any of the players would have that feeling as a competitor, as a university, that we are too scared to play anybody. I just don't think that's the case. Also, it hurts for the seniors, for the guys that treat every game as an opportunity to either better themselves in life or on the football field, So, I mean, a guy like Kwity Paye, he returned for his senior year. Who knows what his draft stock is? I don't know at this point in time what his draft stock is, and I can't imagine it's better.
Right.
But for me personally, if you're looking at this team and you're looking at this situation, Michigan was 30-point dogs.
Yeah.
So never in this program's history has the spread been 30 points or more. And never in Michigan's history have they ever been a 30-point dog to anyone. So with that being said, I can't fathom a situation where those players wouldn't take that as a motivator to go out there and play a hell of a game because you have nothing to lose, truly nothing to lose. I mean, you've won 2 games on the year, none of which are at home. It's been a terrible year, and you're a 30-point dog to your rival in the biggest college football rivalry and questionably the biggest rivalry in all of sports. And I can't think that would be a bad opportunity to have. So I would rather have that and lose than a canceled game, I guess is my long-term statement there. But with that being said, let's take a quick look back at the season before we move on, and because this wasn't a very memorable season, unfortunately. We're going to remember this, but not for a good reason. Before we get into the good and the bad, who do you think you just need to see? Who do you think you should have seen more from, or need to see more from, moving forward for this team? There's one player for me that sticks out. If you want me to go first,
yeah, go ahead.
Erick All.
Yeah,
and I think the only reason that's the case is because he was anointed on a primetime college football game by Kirk Herbstreit. Whether that was his intentions or not, he gave a conversation between him and Harbaugh. That Erick All was the best tight end that Harbaugh has ever seen, or he could be, or all this stuff. And it's like, holy hell, we haven't seen that yet. I mean, that's high praise, and we're not seeing that. So as of right now, I'm not going to give him a bad rating, especially for a true freshman. But we need to see more, especially if you're as good as what we say is, So who's your see more from?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people to go through. Oh, sorry about that. Let me get the little back. Yeah, you good? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, I mean, I can't pick I've been harping on the defensive line all season. I can't really pick anyone there because
they're graduating.
Are going to be graduating.
Yeah.
I really want to see more of Christopher Hinton. Dude had a lot of promise in the offseason. He's only a sophomore, and so he'll be back most likely next year. It sounds like Harbaugh is going to at least get one more season. I mean, it remains to be seen what happens in the next few weeks, because I mean, I'm not even sure what the NCAA is going to be doing about bowl games. What makes you even eligible to be in a bowl game? I would assume that Michigan is probably not going to be in the talks. I mean, if you would say a 4-game prerequisite or requirement, rather, like, I don't know. But, sometimes Michigan kind of gets the love just because of the fan travel. But yeah, Christopher Hinton is going to be my pick.
Okay, yeah. What about bad? I can go first, or you can go first. Doesn't matter.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, bad. It's Vincent Gray, and he's a junior. Rochester Hills, Michigan. He's a local kid. He probably always wanted to go to Michigan his whole life, so I feel bad beating up on him. But pretty rough season from him. Just he's played in 21 games. I mean, it's really a pretty short career as far as junior would go. Some juniors have much more games under their belt, and unfortunately, we just didn't see a whole lot from him.
Right.
I think we're going to look back and look at this season as a really rough secondary year, and Vincent Gray was unfortunately one of the main contributors to that. So if he is continuing to be on this roster next year, which I would assume he would be, regardless of who the coaching staff is or the defensive coordinator, I can't imagine he gets much worse. He needs to get coached up and hopefully have a good senior year, because what we've seen this year was unfortunate. It was bad.
Agreed.
Yeah. What about you? Who's your bad?
My bad is gonna have to be. I'm gonna have to go with secondary as well. I could probably go between Jermaine Green or Brad Hawkins. Brad Hawkins is a senior, and he did not have a very good season either. I mean, this whole entire secondary was just a liability in every single game. So it's between those two guys. I'd hate to not pick one, but I gotta lean more towards Brad Hawkins just because of his veteran status.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately it's fair. I mean what about good? Do you have somebody that sticks out as good?
Well, I feel like the good is going to be Hassan Haskins again.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
You and I have been riding his coattails all season. Pretty much the one bright spot, and we've talked about the odd running back rotation through the whole year, and they just did not use him as much as they should have. I'm assuming he'll be back next season, and him and Charbonnet. Again, a few weeks from now, we'll see what happens if there's any attrition over the next month or two, even. But between him and Charbonnet, we'll probably be duking it out for at least, if you want to call it a bell cow status. Yeah, but I'm going to go Hassan.
Yeah, I mean he was the leading rusher on the team this year. 61 carries for 375 and 6 touchdowns. He averaged 62 yards a game, but over 6 games he averaged 10 carries a game, which is unfortunately not what we needed to see. We needed to see much more of that. Just never did. If you stack up the touches for everybody, I mean, he led the team in touches that wasn't a quarterback. So disappointing. Obviously a shortened year, so that a little bit of that goes into that. But yeah, I 100% agree. I think I'm right there with you. Obviously, with a close second, maybe Giles Jackson.
Yeah.
Had a solid year. Obviously, the big kickoff return and just sparked the comeback against Rutgers. But overall, rough year. Not too much to really go on, but agree. Hassan Haskins. Moving on. This game's not going to be played, and that is what it is. But what about some memories? What is there a game that sticks out for you? I know we touched on a few in the preview episode when college football was potentially not going to happen. Is there a game that sticks out to you that you wouldn't mind talking about?
Well, 2011, and that seems light years ago because I was, guess what, the last time U beat Ohio State. It was that 2011 season was a year of a lot of hope because Brady Hoke first year wasn't a home run hire by any stretch of the imagination, but he reinvigorated the maybe the rivalry. You could say that for at least the first few years. They didn't really change up a whole lot scheme wise. They retained Denard Robinson, and Denard Robinson arguably had his best season in 2011. And despite Ohio State having some struggles that year, it was still an emotional win. And I'm a type of fan that, I troll and I do my you suck on Twitter, but I never tweet at a player, of course. But, of course you know, I'm a fan. So there's times where, I get emotional myself. But, I really appreciated all those seniors that were on that team, and for them to win out that Sugar Bowl after the game or after the Ohio State game, it was really cool. It was really cool. There's a lot of great kids on that team, and they went through hell and back. Junior Hemingway, who comes in, with Lloyd Carr, sticks it out with Rich Rodriguez, sticks it out with your Brady Hoke, and they get the W against Ohio State, and they get the W in a BCS game. So I thought that senior class was just hands down just a solid core of guys that, I mean, I don't think you'll ever find. I mean, maybe you will, because who knows what happens again in the future. But for a while, I don't think you'll find a more tight knit group than the 2011 senior class.
Yeah, we actually met shortly after that Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
So since I've known you, this really sucks. Michigan has never beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that game that you're referencing right there, that 2011 game, super memorable for me. I'm not sure if I told you this or not, but right before kickoff, my wife told me that she was pregnant. It's pretty cool. And then obviously Michigan delivers a massive W for the first time since 2003. But I guess I'll touch on another game that kind of sticks really close to me, and it meant a lot. And every year since then, I kind of assume that we're going to play the same type of game, and we haven't. But it's that 2013 game in Ann Arbor. Yep. I believe the spread. I mean, don't quote me because I don't have it in front of me, and I haven't looked it up. But it was close to 21 points, maybe a point up or down either way. But it was almost 3 touchdowns. It was at least 3 scores that we predicted to lose. And Michigan comes out firing on all cylinders and plays a hell of a game. Unfortunately, the Buckeyes, and again, I don't have the stats in front of me, but Braxton Miller and Carlos Hyde rushed for 300 plus on the day combined. And Michigan goes and scores. And they had the chance to tie or go for 2. And I don't know if you remember this. We were in your living room.
Yeah.
Your old apartment. You had a couple of Michigan friends over, and we literally hugged arms and we watched on that final play, and we just hung our heads. And it is what it is. I mean, the reason this game sucks is because opportunities like that where you're not predicted to win and you give them the fight of your life, and it's games like that make this a rivalry. Unfortunately, since then we really haven't been close outside of the 2016 2 overtime JT was short. Yeah, I mean, haven't had a lot of bright spots. Obviously, 2011 for sure was the win, and 2013 and 2016 would be the other 2. But outside of that,
right. And the 2013 game, man. Like again, Brady Hoke ran out of town. He had a really porous final year. But the 2013 game, like those first 3 years of his tenure, I mean, he always got them to play Ohio State tough.
Yeah.
2012. Michigan. I mean, there's been just a numerous amount of games where Michigan, whether you call them more talented or not, were in position in the driver's seat to win games against Ohio State and haven't. And
absolutely.
2018 and 2012 were both years. 2012, they're up at halftime. Denard Robinson breaks a long one before they go into the tunnel, and second half they come out flat. Brady Hoke just lost the whole team there. I don't know what happened, but the 2013 game, when the one you're talking about, Ohio State is ranked 3 at that time, and Braxton Miller didn't have a great day. 133 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he didn't really have to do much because Carlos Hyde was literally getting like 8 yards a carry. He ran for 230 yards on 27 carries.
Yeah.
And as much as I criticize Devin Gardner, and even though I'm blocked by him on Twitter, he had arguably his best game of his Michigan career, 450 yards and 4 touchdowns. I think the only other time he's come that close is when that same season,
the Indiana game,
and him and Jeremy Gallon went off. So
yeah,
again, this game was a heartbreaker, only because we went in knowing that, or felt like, for 30-point dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not gonna happen. But then we're literally in the driver's seat till the very end, and Devin Gardner, rumored, I think he had a broken foot or dislocated ankle or something, and the reason why they went for 2 was because of that, or was part of the reason they wanted to end the game. He couldn't last much longer, and it was through Drew Delio's arms. But
yeah.
And then the 2016 game, of course, that's a heartbreaker for Michigan fans, regardless of whether you think or thought JT was short. Michigan, we had Will Speight. Will Speight, took 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. And we kept Ohio State on their side of the 40 the whole game. And, I mean, that was ours to win. And I remember where I was at watching that. And the 2016 season is monumental in Michigan history because if they win that game, they go to the college football playoff, whether they win or lose. You don't know what happens with recruiting. You don't know what happens with the rankings. I mean, who knows where we're at right now talking about Jim Harbaugh if 2016 is a W. But it's like if you ever watch the movie Fever Pitch and it's got Jimmy Fallon in it and, he's a diehard Red Sox fan and he's breaking up with it. I forget if he was breaking up with Drew Barrymore or if he was just going through a rut. I think the Red Sox in that part of the movie were just going through a losing streak. And he's sitting in his apartment. There's pizza boxes everywhere. There's empty beer bottles. And he's sitting there in front of the TV. And he keeps rewinding the Bill Buckner play where the ball goes through his legs and the Yankees beat him or something like that. And his friends walk in, they're like, I thought you hid this tape. I thought you threw this tape away. And then that's like almost how it is when I think Jalen Samuels or whatever it is runs it in overtime to beat U of M. That's almost equivalent to what we go through. Of course, I've never sat there on YouTube and replayed it 1,000 times. Yeah. But that's what it's like. And again, when we talk about the rivalry as a whole, in our area, Southeast Michigan, Northwest Ohio, or just in Ohio and Michigan in general, this rivalry is everything, whether Michigan is in the gutter or they're not. Nationally, there's a different perspective because when they see it on TV, they just see Michigan get pummeled all the time.
Yeah.
So the opinions are different, but here it's always going to be a rivalry, and just some degrees, of course. But I mean, just like when we had Indiana beat U of M this year, it's going to happen sooner or later. I mean, Illinois beat Ohio State in 2007 with Juice Williams. It's going to happen sooner or later. But right now, the door is getting shut on them. And so hopefully.
I mean, I'd argue. I mean, this kind of ties into a point I'll have later, but I'd argue this is the best Ohio State team year in and year out that they've ever had.
Like in the point in their program?
Their program is at an all-time high. Yes, thank you for correcting. That's really what I'm getting at. Because if you look back, if you want to just filter in and you look from 85, until 2000, Michigan wins all but three matchups. All but 3 matchups. I mean, they were dominating. So in that 15-year stretch, they tied once and lost 3. I mean, they were dominating, and it's like. That's not what's happening now. Since 2004, we've won 1 time. They've won all the rest, and there's 1 time where they beat us, but now that win's vacated. I mean, it is what it is. They still won.
Yeah.
And now we've run into a point where now we're not just losing the game. We're getting decimated.
Yep.
Like, Saturday we were supposed to be 30-point dogs. Last year we lost by 29. The year before that, 22, 23-ish, 11, 3, 30, 2 scores. These games haven't been competitive outside of 16 in the last couple of years. So it's hard. It's really hard. And Michigan has been at the 58-win mark since 2011. And Ohio State's just adding a new one every year. A new win. So, yeah, it's getting tough.
The window is definitely closing. They're definitely closing. And I would like to point out, too, another one of the games that that I wasn't born yet. But, it was the 1973 game where they tied.
Yeah.
and they took the Big Ten athletic directors took or voted Ohio State to go to the Rose Bowl, and they ended up decimating the USC Trojans and O.J. Simpson that year. So on paper, and in the end, the grand scheme of things, Ohio State performed well. If anyone, Michigan Ohio State fans are listening or watching to this, if you have never seen the documentary Tiebreaker, I think it's arguably the rivalry's best documentary of just covering. I mean, it doesn't really cover the whole rivalry; it just covers, the 1973 game. And I think, in my opinion, it's the best one. I know they have the HBO one, and now it's really outdated because it's been out since 2007. But if you watch Tiebreaker, it's got a lot of conspiracies behind it. It's so interesting because when you watch it, you got the old guard, the Michigan players that played in the game, the Ohio State players that played in the game. There's such mutual respect to each other, and I think that's what's kind of missing these days. A lot of that has to do with social media. But like Dennis Franklin was the first African American quarterback in Ann Arbor, and he was, I think, 1 year into his career there before Cornelius Green, Ohio State's quarterback, who was also African American, comes in there. And Cornelius Green, not like on record, looked up to Dennis Franklin because they're both minorities. They're coming up through the civil rights era. And if you watch that documentary, Cornelius Green, they're all sitting at dinner at a table together. And then they go back from that conversation they're having to talking about the story. And when when Cornelius Green, at the table says, Dennis, I looked up to you, I thought that was a really cool moment because today, I mean, we're so nasty with each other with the trolling and everything like that. So if anyone has a chance to watch Tiebreaker, it's only about an hour long. But the cool thing is with all the conspiracies is when you have all these athletic directors, so many people have different stories and theories, and it's so cool to listen to. Michigan, Ohio State, I mean, they used to call it, the Big Two, or the Little Eight and the Big Two, or the Big Two and the Little Eight. And the coaching trees from Michigan, Ohio State would branch off to the other smaller schools, and they'd also become athletic directors. And when you watch it, one of the former Letterman hockey players at U of M, Bert Smith, becomes an athletic director for Michigan State. And you're left wondering, did his vote for Ohio State become the ultimate factor for why U of M didn't get voted in? Because, again, they finished a 10-10 tie. Dennis Franklin, who I just mentioned, gets knocked out of the game because of his shoulder. He ended up having a really bad injury. He couldn't throw in his throwing shoulder. So obviously you're led to believe that they all voted for Ohio State because their team was healthy, and Michigan never really performed well in the recent Rose Bowl games at that time. I think the year in 1972 or 1971, I think they got dismantled by UCLA or somebody like that. But anyways, yeah, definitely check it out. And again, it's really cool to see those old guys. And you hate on me for getting that picture and autograph with Archie Griffin, but man, I can't hate on that guy. Every time I watch that guy on TV, man, he's just a class act.
Yeah, no, I get it. You know me, I hate all Buckeyes. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. Yeah, I mean, that's it's been a while since I've seen that. I do remember some of the things that you shared, and it's obviously a classic game, and there's been lots of them, and I hope that someday there'll be more,
Yeah.
Let's shift to this. Let's talk a little bit about the rumor mill. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh is still, as of today, December 8th of 2020, he's still the head football coach. And rumor has it that they're working out some sort of extension. I've heard anywhere between 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year. Heavy incentive-based contract where, it involves beating rivals and such nature. And what are your initial opinions on a return of Jim Harbaugh?
I'm half and half. I've been on record saying that I think it's I think it's time for a new regime, but at the same time, I respect the decision because with the pandemic going on and with me learning, or us learning last week, of the $10 million buyout in this contract currently, and how the athletic department's $100 million in the hole, that financially it's not feasible to probably get rid of him, you know. So if he comes on and he has incentives, I mean, who says he doesn't have incentives now? If they retain Jim Harbaugh, I'll be a little grumpy, but I'll also respect it. It's also probably to hold on to every bit of recruit they can. But I think that this coaching staff, the assistants, need to get retooled. I think they need to get rid of Jay Harbaugh, his son, as a running back head coach. You know, again, I mentioned it. We talked about it before with Tyrone Wheatley and him having a tiff. Him and Jim Harbaugh having a tiff. That's why he left town. I've also heard rumors that Jedd Fisch is supposed to come back, and that was their first year coordinator, and he went to UCLA. I'm not sure why he even left.
Jedd Fisch?
Yeah.
He's with New England.
Well, he went to UCLA after in 2016, I believe. Yeah. And then so he's kind of a bit of a leapfrog. Maybe I'm a type of guy I'm a fan who likes continuity.
Absolutely.
I want to see guys keep getting retained, and it's hard to do that because when you start to perform really well, the money backs come a knocking.
And everybody's trying to find the next Sean McVay or the next Lincoln Riley, the next Dabo Swinney. Everybody wants that next guy, and they want to find him. And they typically look at places that have success. What are they doing? What have you been taught? And I think at the end of the day, I'm with you, but I differ a little bit. I want continuity as well, and I want the best guy for the job, but I also want somebody that's in it for the long haul and isn't looking at us as a stepping stone job. Bill O'Brien did a hell of a job at Penn State. After all their allegations came out and having to replace a legend. I don't think he gets talked about enough of how good of a job he did, and with the limited amount of he did Absolutely. A fantastic job with the limited amount of scholarships he was allowed to have and stuff. And he goes to the NFL and takes a big boy job, But I don't want that. I don't want a 2-year coach. I don't want somebody that's going to come in and as much as I've spoke about Joe Brady, is like I don't know that Joe Brady wants to be the head football coach at Michigan. I think he wants to be an NFL head coach. Yeah. And that's why I want Jim Harbaugh to stay, and I just want him to revamp, and because, everybody talks about these incentive-based contracts. Like, don't sit here and preach to me that a $2 million incentive to beat Ohio State means more to him than beating Ohio State.
Right.
It's just not. It's stupid. It's asinine. Jim Harbaugh is a competitor.
Right.
I think we both agree that. And we've said this on the pod before. I know we have, and we've talked about off air, but Jim Harbaugh died in 2016 in Columbus, on the sideline. And we haven't seen the same guy. And I think you've said this before. They're cringe, but where the hell are those who has it better than us music videos and signing of the stars, and freaking screaming at people and tweeting at Nick Saban and tweeting at the University of Tennessee and calling their programs dirty.
When he tweeted at Nick Saban, it was savage as hell.
It was. And that was the Jim Harbaugh that not only were we behind, but he was like the leader. You know what I mean? And we got behind that. And now we say, oh, there's Jim Harbaugh on a Downey commercial talking about his khakis. And we're losing by 30, and it sucks. Well, but it's gonna go ahead.
If like I said, okay, if we can grow with him being retained, again, I feel like Jay Harbaugh cannot be coaching the running backs anymore, and you have to sit back and look. I'm like, is there signs of life for Josh Gaddis to come back, and is there signs of life for Don Brown to come back? Don Brown has been an excellent defensive coordinator in years prior. However, until it comes to Ohio State, it's obviously been a no-show. So you got to ask yourself, does Don Brown give you confidence that he should come back? Is he going to improve this defense? The same thing with Josh Gaddis. I wanted to give him, 2 years. Again, we're only getting a sample size of Josh Gaddis this season. He had 1 year, and Shea Patterson, say what you will about him. I think it was respectful, and I thought it was deserving to give Gaddis that second year. But again, we're having a sample size. So do I want Gaddis gone? Maybe. If you find someone in an upgrade, but I think he comes back. But but between Don Brown and Jay Harbaugh, I would not shed a tear. What do you think?
What, let's speak on Don Brown for a second. So Jim Harbaugh, he comes in his first year and he has his first year was DJ Durkin.
Yeah.
DJ Durkin, okay? DJ takes he brings him over from Florida, okay? He takes the Maryland job. Obviously, allegations came with that. Doesn't really matter. He was without a defensive coordinator going into 2015, right? Because 2014 was his first year. Help me out.
2015.
2015 was his first year. So
yes.
Going into 2016, okay, he makes a call. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard this story. Makes a call to Bill Belichick. And he says, "Hey, Bill, I'm in the need of a defensive coordinator. Do you know anyone?" And he tells Jim Harbaugh, "There is this guy over at Boston College, Don Brown.
Yep.
You should hire him." He goes, "Thanks, Bill." Hangs up the phone, makes a call to Don Brown. Don Brown obviously comes over at Michigan, and he's fantastic from day one. Okay? After that first year, though, his stats have gotten – the team defense, meaning stats,
yep.
have gotten worse and worse. So Boston College, he was number one in the nation in 2015. Michigan, 2016, number one in the nation in total defense. And then every year after that, it's just gotten abysmal, including this year. And clearly there's tape on him. Clearly he doesn't adapt.
Yeah.
This is nothing against Don Brown. I don't know. Have you ever seen the Amazon special, All or Nothing?
Oh, I did watch that, yeah.
Okay. There is footage of Don Brown giving a pregame speech against Florida that week 1 game.
Yeah.
And I would run through a burning brick wall for that.
He is a man on fire.
I would run through a burning brick wall for that man. But unfortunately, we're being outcoached.
Mm-hmm.
And if Jim Harbaugh wants to stay, and I want him to stay, I really do, Don Brown needs to be gone, and you need to get something better. Somebody that's somebody that can coach up his own defense, because we can't just run man-to-man in college football, and we have no shot when playing zone. It's shown every year when we have to shift to it. We don't stand a chance. We don't coach it. We don't play it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as offense goes, I'm not opposed to keeping Gaddis. I think I don't want to be that guy that's like next man up, kick, continuity, like you said.
Yeah.
But if he can't be our head football coach, man, I would love for Jim Harbaugh to pay a phone call to Joe Brady. I'm just all over Joe Brady from what he's done. It's proven success. I mean, He has a great track record. If Jedd Fisch can somehow come back and they can make that work, that'd be cool too. Maybe Harbaugh says, "Hey, come be my offensive coordinator, and I'm only going to coach a couple more years, because this program's a lot." I mean, it is. But I don't want Harbaugh to be fired. I know you don't either. But at the same time, we need to be better. But it brings me to my next point here. It's what's wrong with college football, in my humble opinion. This is the only sport, and I challenge anybody that's listening to this. I challenge you. I challenge anyone to tell me differently. This is the only sport where there's no Cinderella stories. Okay? There can't be a Cinderella story. This is the only sport where you cannot lose a single game. This is the only sport where if you win and go undefeated, you're not promised anything.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. There is no other sport where you can potentially win 12 straight games, go undefeated, and be told, sorry.
Right.
There's not room for you. There isn't one. It doesn't
Right.
exist. But college football apparently is. We're better than everybody. All because ESPN tells us we have the number 1 recruiting class. Or ESPN tells us that this team's better than this team. or because 13 guys can sit in a room and tell me that that team's better than that one based off the eye test. I don't know. I have a really hard time with it. I think for the most part, average Joes like me and you could tell you who the best 4 teams are. But at the end of the day, these games are played on gridiron, green grass, turf, whatever it is, but between the end zone, and anything can happen. And I'm not saying that I have the perfect solutions, but I mean, I said this today. If Alabama and the SEC were to go undefeated, Clemson in the ACC goes undefeated, Ohio State in the Big Ten goes undefeated, Oklahoma in the Big 12 goes undefeated, and Oregon from the Pac-10 goes undefeated. Who gets left out, Dan?
Well, we all know it's probably going to be the Pac-12.
Why is that?
Because no one respects their conference as much as the others.
And why is that?
The talent pool is not as high.
And why is that? Because we go off recruiting rankings? You know what I mean? Like
I know your point. I know your
broken.
point.
And again, that hasn't happened. So until it does, you're like, Jeff, you're making shit up. But it's like, am I? Because as of right now, as it sits right now, there's a very good chance that we could be looking at it's like 4 or 5 undefeated teams. Now, mind you, I'm not sitting here trying to make a case for Coastal Carolina, but at the same token, if you go to that 8, and I've preached it many times, 8 is the magic number. You get your 5 Power 5, okay, 3 at large. If that 5th Power 5 team is not a sustainable team, like for instance, let's say, I don't know a great example, but for this year, let's just for fighting purposes, the Big Ten, they're way down. Let's say Ohio State even lost 2 games. In a way down Big Ten, if you wanted to leave Ohio State out, okay. Whatever. But at the end of the day, I think there needs to be an actual system. Because I promise you, as much as people assume that this wouldn't be the case, if you made an 18 playoff today, and I want you to really think about this. If Alabama was the number 1 seed and they have to play the number 4 seed, Ohio State, it's going to pop a rating. People are going to watch, right?
Right.
In your opinion, do you think that Alabama, in a college football playoff, in a 1 through 8, do you think Alabama versus Coastal Carolina would draw a rating? I think it would.
I think so.
I think it would. So why are we thinking that it won't? If an undefeated Coastal Carolina or undefeated Cincinnati or whoever it is, especially coming off a win against BYU,
right?
I mean, who was also undefeated. It's just sad that these teams have to literally call somebody up last minute and be like, hey, do you want to play each other? It's only going to benefit both of us. It's just like, I don't know. It's broken. College football is broken. You know, if Coastal Carolina went undefeated in college basketball, they would be respected and be in a tournament. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that college football needs to go to 64 teams because I don't believe that everybody and their brothers should be in. But I do think that 8's probably the magic number. And you can argue at that point who the last 3 are, and I'm not going to complain if the 9th team doesn't get in.
Right.
I won't. But I can complain that the 5th team doesn't get in when they're undefeated. I can argue that. I'm sorry. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't we sit here and argue that? There's a reason that we went to 4. And that's because there was plenty of times where there were multiple undefeated teams not even getting a considerate. Boise State. You know, back when they upset Oklahoma, they're not getting consideration. UCF just a couple years ago. It's truly broken. College football is it's almost dead.
Yeah,
because we're allowing 13 guys.
Right. No,
we're allowing 13 guys to make a decision.
I hear you. But like, you know, when you what people are afraid of who make the ultimate decisions is like when you do pair those teams up, they're gonna get they think they're gonna get killed, but it's also the money. It's obviously the money, you know, money flows, money talks. But you know, when you do give those teams a shot, they are hungry. And there is, you know, like that Boise State Fiesta Bowl game against Oklahoma, they can catch you off guard. But yeah, it's a magic number. And in our preview in the beginning of the back in August, rather, you know, I said like, I mean, if you go 4, if you go to 6, then people are gonna want 8. If you go to 8, then you're gonna want 12. But I think 8 is probably the most logical. I think Jim Harbaugh said before that he wanted he thought 16, but that's just way too many.
I think
I
it's
could
too
be
many.
wrong. I could be wrong. I thought he said he'd be cool with 16, but and these are college athletes. I mean, these kids that are playing basketball had barely time for school. If you're doing a college football season that you start a 16-man tournament, it's going to be grueling on these kids. And again, we're getting some slippery slopes with the postseason in college football, and the landscape is ever changing. And I don't know if you want to get into or touch on what we heard about with Kirk Herbstreit and his comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Kirk Herbstreit, if anyone has missed it, I posted it to the Real Talk Facebook page a couple days ago, and he went on a brief interview, and he was saying that what is happening to our sport, and what he means by that is college basketball is kind of trickling into college football, and that is when you think of March Madness, does anyone really watch the NIT unless your team is in it? No. When you watch March Madness, you're watching it because your team's in the tournament. You have a shot at winning something. And the way that it's trickling into college football is these kids, if they're not in the playoff, they're opting out for the NFL draft. They're it's respectful because they don't want to risk their injuries because it's happened before. We've seen it with Michigan and Jake Butt tearing his ACL twice. Even if you're going to the Rose Bowl and the BCS or any of these BCS bowls, these at large games, these guys they're not playing. And so where are we at right now? So if your team is not in the college football playoff, what's the point of playing the college? What's the point of playing the games? And in the grand scheme, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just another game, really, I guess you could say, and maybe the minds of some of these players. And before I hand this off to you, I like people to ask themselves, let's say Michigan, Ohio State, since we've been talking about them all night. Well, let's say one of the teams has a star running back, and then maybe a Heisman Trophy dark horse, or someone you've talked about, or the media's talked about being a Heisman finalist, or the Doak Walker winner, top nation back. And let's say he is poised for a top 10, top 5 pick in the NFL draft next season, and he sits out. And you go into that bowl game, and are you expecting a next man up scenario, or are you giving a little leniency to the performance in that bowl game because you don't have your best player in the field? And do you give a little leniency? So if Jim Harbaugh had that running back that I'm talking about, and they have a freshman taking his place because that's all they have in the depth chart, and they lose that bowl game because the running game can't get going and they're one-dimensional. I mean, do you really criticize Jim Harbaugh for not having a W in that column? I feel like this is getting really weird now where, are bowl game records really meaningful if you're not competing for the crown?
I 100% agree. And unfortunately, I don't know that it's fixable because at this point, I think Nick Saban publicly said that the college football playoff was the cause of this, but I don't think it is. I think it was a trend that was set, and you even see pro athletes doing it. Kawhi Leonard. He load management. Where he sits out 20-ish games. He plays 62 of 82. And college football athletes see it as, okay, at this point, my contributions have been made. We fell short of our team goal. We're playing in a bowl game that, outside of 3 games, you got college football playoff game 1, college football playoff game 2 in the Rose Bowl. And as you alluded to, there's been people that have sat out of the Rose Bowl. So it's like the granddaddy of them all, the freaking Rose Bowl, isn't prestige enough to get somebody to play. No bowl game is. Yeah, and I don't fault them for it. I really don't, because it's at this point it's just another game, So if you can't benefit from it, why play?
Right.
And that it sounds terrible. It makes it sound like the millennials are talking. They're
Right.
not hish hash with that, but I think Chase Winovich, he played hurt in his last bowl game. I think he had a shoulder injury or played hurt. And when asked, "Are you going to sit out?" and he goes, "I would never take my last opportunity at Michigan and sit out." He wouldn't, and that's a blue collar attitude. That's a
Right.
this is my last game. This is my last opportunity. I have too much respect for myself, my family, my teammates, my coaching staff. That's put everything into me, and they need one more game from me, and I'm going to tell them no. Absolutely not. I won't do that. And some people have that mentality.
Right.
Some people, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately. I don't want to say that because some people just think there's too much at stake. Karan Higdon, if you watch that Amazon All or Nothing, there's a little piece in there that he has a young daughter. The whole time he was playing college football, he has a young daughter, and Karan, we're talking $1 million or no money.
Right.
He ended up going undrafted, which I think he didn't expect. He's found himself on a roster since then, but regardless, in that specific situation, he bailed on Harbaugh. I don't want to say bailed on him, but he chose family over football, and I don't blame him. It is what it is. It's a meaningless game. Unless you're playing for the college football playoff, it's meaningless. So if you want to see more people play, you got to expand the playoffs. But at the same token, expanding the playoffs might cause more injury. So it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of things that tie together with this specific topic, though, because like you alluded to, we look at that game where we're out our leading rusher for the year. He rushed for like 1,500 yards, and we're without him in a bowl game. And we chalk that loss up on Harbaugh. It's all Harbaugh's fault, And it's like, is that fair? Ohio State is at an all-time high. We already said this, and Michigan is at, I don't want to say an all-time low because I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second, but they're questionably down. If you look at history, they're really right there. I mean, 9 to 10 wins is really what they are. Anybody that thinks differently is probably like me and living in a fantasy world. But can they be higher? Yes. Realistically, are they going to be? I don't think so. But it's like we hold every single win to like the highest standard, and that's what's wrong with college football. Is like could you imagine? Seriously, I want you to think about this. So Harbaugh loses to Michigan State. That was an upset, right? We expected him to win.
Yeah.
What would happen if Bill Belichick lost to the winless Jets in a couple weeks when they play? Would they fire him? Would we call for his head? You know why?
They would not, because he's proven.
Know why? Harbaugh's not proven, at least a little bit.
Well, I mean, trophy case.
Okay.
No.
Well, okay. So let me go back. How many people in the last 10 years have a trophy in college football? I'm going to use 3 fingers, and I'll let you fill them up. Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Dabo, Jimbo Fisher. So 4. Yeah. Okay? That's it. That's the end of the list. That is the end of the list. It's not easy to get added to that list. And Michigan's the only school, in my opinion, that's calling for the head of their head coach because do you think Kirby Smart, right? That's his name, Georgia?
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to be calling for his head in 2 years?
And he's at Georgia right now, right?
Yeah. Now, mind you, a little bit different. He's played in the national championship game and a college football playoff twice. So, little different scenario. So, let me backpedal. Okay, James Franklin. Let's say he didn't have this bad of a year. Okay? Do you think they'd call for his head?
If he didn't have this bad of a year?
Yeah. He's just another 8-3, 8-4.
No, I wouldn't because he gave Penn State probably one of their best years of their school history. And when it comes to Kirby Smart, Georgia's leash isn't short and it isn't long. And the reason why I say that is because Mark Richt was there for a while, and Mark Richt was, again, on the fringe for a long time, couldn't get it done. And so they moved on from him. And I feel like with this win win now attitude, which again is very competitive, so it's respectable, whether you agree with it or not. If Kirby's smart, if he competes for the SEC championship games, I think he'll do enough. But I mean, again, they're still having a pretty respectable year this season. So I mean, I don't. Kirby Smart again. A couple more years, as long as he's competitive with Alabama and then the SEC championship game, I don't see why not.
But what if he never beats Bama? Because he hasn't yet.
If he has, I mean, let's say he goes 2 more years without beating Bama.
0-5. Let's say he goes 0-5 against Bama.
0-5. I mean, there was going to be talk about it. I mean, there's not going to not be talk about it.
That's crazy to me. It's just crazy to me.
I know, but you know what? It's just the way the landscape's at, man. If that 0-5, when you're staring at those numbers, I mean, when you look at Jim Harbaugh's stats, I mean, you're focused on that 0 or that 1.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah. I mean,
Somebody pointed something out to me the other day, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you are too, and a lot of people are. And ESPN's especially guilty of it because they're the ones that show us the graphic. But Ohio State or Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, his record against being an underdog, as an underdog, he's like 0-12 or something like that. 5 of those are Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're kind of doubling back on it. You know what I mean?
A little bit, yeah.
You know, when you show the rivalry games and you're like, well, he's 3-9. Again, 5 of those are Ohio State. You're throwing that in every single category. He's 0-5 against Ohio State, and he's terrible record in rivalry games, but Ohio State's a rivalry, and they're 0-12 in games that they're an underdog. But again, they're always an underdog to Ohio State, so that's 5 of them. And you're just using Ohio State in every graphic in order to pad your narrative. You know, if you take Ohio State out of the equation, you completely take them out of the equation. That's why I mentioned that a couple weeks back. Is Michigan lost their first game at home this year that wasn't against Ohio State or Michigan State. We've dominated that category.
Yeah.
This year, obviously, it's a down year. I mean, it sucks. But it's real. It is what it is. I don't know. I don't know what else to say, but I'm okay with whatever happens. If they resign Harbaugh, I'm all in. I'm all in right now. I hope he stays.
Yeah.
And only for the sense that I believe that he can change this program, but we also need to see a different Harbaugh. We can't see the Harbaugh that came out this year. We can't see blue khakis Harbaugh because, dear Lord, that's bad. We can't see Downey Harbaugh because that's been bad. We need to see 2016 screaming at refs, getting flags. You know, I'll take the cheesy music videos if that's what it takes. I'll take God, I remember when me and you went to the spring game, I think it's second year. I want to say it was 2016. And there was like a rap concert going down on the field. You remember that?
Yeah.
Like, and we're like, what the hell is this? But at the same time, it's swagger.
Right. They announced the incoming class. Rashawn Gary was a part of that class. They announced like it was a damn NBA All-Star game. So
yes.
Yeah, I mean, COVID aside, hopefully they can start doing that again. I think that reinvigorates the crowd a little bit. It gets the homers, a little slap happy, which is cool. It pats them on, it gets them nice, furry, and warm inside. But in the grand scheme of things, it comes down to the boosters and the big dogs and the Michigan family. Are they going to be okay with it? Because obviously they said something and they told him to dial it back. They need to let him just free roam. They kind of needed to let Jim Harbaugh be like Bill O'Brien. Like, Bill O'Brien is a freaking god-awful roster manager. Like, his roster management is awful.
Yeah.
But he's a great coach.
Yeah.
Or he's a good coach, rather. I mean, whatever you want to call him.
He's at least a good head coach.
He's a good coach.
He can coach football.
The only thing about Bill O'Brien is he's a leapfrog. He goes to and from everywhere. But Jim Harbaugh he needs the keys of the castle again. Hopefully that happens. If not, he's going to have to find a different strategy because we are going into a monumental 2021. But again, we've talked about it before. The gap with Ohio State is growing, and And what he has to do is get revenge on Michigan State next year, because you cannot let Michigan State
gain momentum.
Any momentum.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
kill it.
And with Michigan State's offensive woes this year, they're going to be. I mean, this is going to be, I think, a key year for Michigan and Michigan State to transfer portal. Jim Harbaugh, especially because he's got so much young faces all over the place on both sides of the ball, especially in that secondary. Outside of Brad Hawkins and Daxton Hill. Oh, Hawkins will be gone, so yeah, you'll need it. They need to grab every crumb that players are looking to find new homes.
Yeah, we're tied to 3 top corners over the next 2 years that are in talks to come to Michigan. Next year, there's a 4-star kid. 2021, there's a 4 and 5-star kid that are known to be a tandem. They want to play together.
Mm-hmm.
We're tied to those kids. Things could change in the secondary. You never know, but I like to give Harbaugh his credit where credit due, and we'll use this on a closing note. But if he ends up being gone, I don't know how many more pods we're gonna do weekly, and we'll still discuss that. But if Harbaugh ends up leaving, his legacy at Michigan, I think to a lot of people would be like he couldn't win, but he put a lot of kids in the NFL. This goes under the radar, but the Jordan brand, bringing that on. Nobody talks about this, but not only was that huge for the Michigan football program, obviously Michigan tradition and things like that, such nature. We're the first football program to don the Jordan emblem, and we got it exclusive for a whole year. But the basketball team, it's such a heavy recruiting mechanism. Mm-hmm. That Jordan brand on your freaking jersey, and who would have knew? But it's huge. It's massive. It's monumental. And Harbaugh was the catalyst for that. Getting on the phone with Michael Jordan, making that shit happen. That's huge. It's really huge. I mean, you can look it up today. The top fitters, okay? Nike usually 1, Jordan 2, and like Under Armour's even in there. Adidas ain't. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were donning Adidas, and Harbaugh, his contract was up, wanted something innovative, and he got us to land Jordan. And the basketball program's reaping the benefits of that, obviously. And I think the football program, for the most part, has too. There just needs to be some change. And I think the coaching staff's the biggest thing. And I think, he's proven to have success in certain areas. Jake Rudock obviously was a solid transfer. There's been others that haven't worked, Mm-hmm. We've had good offensive linemen. We've had good wide receivers. Hell, Donovan Peoples-Jones owning the Titans this past weekend. Never had a really great stretch at Michigan, but he's in the NFL and he's owning. So it's like, mm-hmm. We can get the guys. We just need to make them work on Saturday afternoon, especially in late November against Ohio State. And as of right now, it's not working. But that's really all I got.
No, I'm right with you, buddy.
Yeah. Well, we went an hour talking about Michigan, Ohio State being canceled. But let's real quickly, if you got another second. As of right now, Final Four. It's Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, and then 5, 6, 7. It's Texas A&M, Florida, Iowa State. At 8, it's Cincinnati. Okay. Yeah. Everybody down. I'm not going to really worry about right now. As of right now, what do you think happens? What do you think mixes up?
I mean, get your popcorn ready. It's gonna be interesting. Interesting final few weeks here, because obviously you have teams that played more games than others. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Only played 5 games. You got Notre Dame playing 10, Clemson playing 10, Alabama playing 9. When you look at the top 4, I think it's honestly pretty agreeable across the nation that's what it is. You might have people, flip-flopping the Notre Dame Clemson a little bit. But you keep Ohio State at 4 there right now. And the only team outside of the top 4 that could have an argument about being in the playoff is Florida. That's just my opinion. And only because, they're probably the most talented. They lost to Texas A&M by 3.
Yeah.
But they've got good wins, and I think they beat Georgia, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
So Florida, I think, has got a resume that could be respected. So it obviously remains to be seen what happens here. But dude, that top four is pretty solid to me that you just named off. And
Yeah.
Again, not playing Saturday is going to hurt Ohio State, and if it bounces them out, Texas A&M. Right now they're getting the nod ahead of Florida because they beat them, but it's a very tight knit race.
Yeah, I think that a lot of ifs still to come. I don't think A&M can really do anything. They just need help. Florida can beat Bama and get themselves potentially in the top four. Clemson obviously losing to Notre Dame would be huge because I think they would drop out with their second loss and both of them to a playoff team.
You have to take Clemson out. You got assuming that Trevor Lawrence plays there and he'll be healthy, which he probably will. If you lose that game with your best player and one of the best players in the nation, there should be no reason why you should be in the top four anymore.
Yeah, if you lose to a top four team twice, you're out. Period. Yeah, I agree. Which would move Ohio State up to 3, and then there's a bidding war for 4. And again, results of Florida, Alabama. I don't know what Cincinnati's chances are. They were supposed to play Tulsa this weekend. That game's canceled, so they're kind of done. I would love for Cincinnati to call up Ohio State and get a game in, but it doesn't sound like that's possible. I don't know.
What happens if Bama loses? What do you think?
Bama loses to Florida, right? Is that what you're implying? SEC championship game. Let me go a step further. Does Clemson lose to Notre Dame or not?
I think they get their revenge.
I do too. So we're assuming they win, right?
Yeah.
So I'm keeping both teams in, Notre Dame and Clemson. Notre Dame has looked fantastic this year. They deserve to be in unless they get trumped by Clemson. If for some reason Clemson runs it on them,
right,
they're in. Okay.
Right.
Ohio State better play the Big Ten title game. They better play it. Because otherwise I'd have a hard time putting them in with 5 wins, and their best win is against Indiana.
Yeah.
And mind you, everybody likes to say Indiana played them close. It was 4 scores going into the fourth quarter before Ohio State decided to blow it up. They were dominating them. It wasn't close. Ohio State played their worst game of the year and beat them. It only ended up being by 7, I think. But they were up huge and they played terrible. So again, it's their only good win of the year. They don't have anything on their resume. I think Florida would have a better case. And I would leave Ohio State out.
It's going to be like an M. Night Shyamalan movie where that twist at the end of the film, it's going to toss everything around. It's going to be, hopefully everything plays out. There's no COVID complications with anything hampering these games. But I mean, despite what you can take away from 2020, I think the playoff scenario is going to be one that we'll remember forever because of just how the way it's shaking out. But
yeah, I think my hope is that COVID brings us 8 teams, and I don't think it'll happen this year. Yeah. But I do think as the result of what happens, and I'm praying for chaos because chaos, I believe, brings change.
Yeah.
And Florida beating Bama and getting left out, or Florida beating Bama and then Bama getting left out, would create an 8-team playoffs, in my opinion. And at that point, Cincinnati would be able to squeak at a playoff spot, or Coastal Carolina, Coastal Carolina, say what you want. They have 10 wins on the year, and they just beat BYU. I don't think they're scared to play anybody. So do I think that they would beat an Ohio State or a Clemson or a Notre Dame or Bama? I don't.
No.
And Vegas doesn't think they would either.
No, and the thing about Coastal Carolina too is they've played damn near a whole schedule. They've done what's been asked of them, which is fine. But when we're talking about those teams that can pull an upset in a big time bowl game like the Boise States, Coastal Carolina isn't, I don't think, at that level. So I think they'd get demolished. But then again, they were in that category, whether you like it or not, of hey, look at me,
Yeah.
we'll play you anytime, anywhere. And but real quick, speaking about Coastal Carolina, I need that Mullets versus Mormons T-shirt so bad. That was
That crap went viral, dude. It just went viral. Everybody was sharing it. Yeah, the thing about Coastal Carolina is that so they beat the University of Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns. Okay.
Yeah.
The Cajuns only have one loss on the year, I believe, and it's to Coastal Carolina. The Raging Cajuns beat Iowa State. Iowa State's ranked like 7th in the nation.
Yeah.
The Raging Cajuns beat them. So Coastal Carolina has beat a team that beat them, and they're still not ahead of them. And they're going to play them again in 2 weeks. So Coastal Carolina is going to end up being 12-0. And they've beaten 1, 2, 3 ranked teams. And Appalachian State's no gimme. They've been better over the last several years.
Yeah.
But the problem is there's no defense. They barely beat Kansas. They barely beat Cam, whoever the hell that is. Arkansas State. All these teams scored on them. I mean, Georgia Southern's the only team they shut out. Everybody else scored a bunch. So it's like they just don't have the resume with the defense. You don't think Alabama could drop 50 on this team? You're crazy, So that's a problem.
I mean, I feel like if Coastal Carolina keeps doing what they're asked, I think that team it would be a cool New Year's Day watch. I'm looking on right here on ESPN, and they've got bowl projections after week 14, and I'm trying to look for Coastal Carolina right now. Let's see here. I don't know if I haven't caught them yet, but it'd be cool to see them in a game where they're facing off one of the Power Five to see how it goes.
Yeah,
which I don't see why they shouldn't.
Yeah, when you get to the New Year's Day Bowl and you got Georgia versus Cincinnati, and it's like, if you remember correctly, several years back, everybody was on the Colt. This has been a while. I shouldn't say several years back. This was like 2007. Colt Brennan from Hawaii.
Yeah.
Went up against like a 2-loss Georgia team, and everybody was on Colt Brennan, me included. I'm a young kid, obviously, and they destroyed Hawaii, like 50-something to 7. And it's like, would that be what the Cincinnati game is? Cincinnati's well coached, but do they really have the talent? At the end of the day, are you actually good enough to win a game?
Right. What? Speaking of Cincinnati, what was all right? Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Was at Cincinnati.
Yes.
He got those. I think he got those guys that played the Orange Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. And then before that game, he had bounced to Notre Dame. He never finished the season at Cincinnati.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Did Cincinnati play an Orange Bowl that year?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I remember he didn't coach the game.
Yeah,
because he had already accepted the job, so they booted him or whatever. Mm-hmm. I guess I don't remember who that last team was.
Hold on, give me 1 second. So Brian Kelly. I don't mean to derail our momentum here. So I take that back. So 2009 was his last season in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And they went 12-0 and they played in the Sugar Bowl.
Yes.
And they played against
Florida.
The Florida Gators and Urban Meyer, and Cincinnati got beat 51-24. Okay.
So that was, funny enough, and Brian Kelly wasn't changing the results of that game. That is Tim Tebow's last game as a Florida Gator.
And that was Urban Meyer's last game as a Gator, because several days before the game, he said he's going to take a leave of absence, and then the migraines and all that came into play, yeah.
Yes. So they weren't beating that Florida Gator team that year, regardless. But, I mean, Tim Tebow led Florida teams were as good as any, and they could have played for a national title every year. Even the team that we played his sophomore year, the year he won the Heisman, and Michigan beat him. I mean, that was a good football team then. They just were starting to find themselves. So, all right. Well, I don't have anything else.
I don't either, man. I mean, it was a fun chat. We talked a little Michigan Ohio State, and I know the fans in the rivalry are a little up in arms today about Michigan ducking the Buckeyes, blah blah blah. But we all know that's malarkey. That's not true. But again, hopefully everyone's healthy, and now that we don't really have any Michigan talk, hopefully I'd be honored to come back on and talk even some Buckeye stuff, or just Big Ten in general. Because again, we still have hopefully a conference championship game, and we still got the postseason and just college football in general. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll see what happens. Again, that college football playoff, man, the SC championship game is going to be monumental.
Absolutely, I think that's huge. And if you're rooting for a little sister, an A&M or a Cincinnati or whoever it is, you need Bama to take care of business, and you need Notre Dame to take care of business, and you probably need Ohio State to maybe get left out too. But yeah, well, we'll get together and we'll do some sort of other college football episode. That Michigan season's done, and where our heartbroken tears will be dried up by 6:00 on Saturday afternoon. So good chat as always. Where can we find you on Twitter?
If anyone would like to follow me, I'm at Maze Rage 86. Again, I've said before, I do a lot of trolling on Twitter, but I can also have a conversation. So, if you feel like it, it's not like I'm Colin Cowherd, and I have a huge following or anything like that. But I send my piece. It's a good time on there, whatever. And I was blocked by some more Buckeye fans a few days ago, whatever. So life's good.
Yeah.
In that realm. But anyways, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. If you guys check out the Twitter page for Real Talk 2, it's at Real Talk Jeff 1, at Real Talk Jeff 1. And you can follow my main page in the link in the bio there too. So cool, guys. Thanks for listening. Check out the YouTube channel if you haven't already. It'll be in the links. And another good time. Thanks, Dan. See you next time. Go Blue.
Good night. Go Blue.